I asked Jim if he would be interested in doing the invocation, so next month, if someone from the public that knows they're gonna be here would like to do it, just let me know, or we'll move on with board members. You go ahead, let's do it. No, we get paid up, never mind. We don't do it.
You're talking softly.
Too softly. Okay, we can turn the line. Oh, that was already recorded? Okay, it's 10:05 on May the 10th, 2014. This is the May monthly meeting of the Cedar Mountain Fire Protection District Board of Trustees. The meeting is called to order and is now in session. Some housekeeping tips: if you have cell phones, pagers, iPhones, anything that makes a noise, either put it in vibrate, stun, or off position because it interferes with the recording. Restrooms, and everybody's been here before. Behind you is the ladies' room in that portal. If you look to your right, there's another portal there. Men's room is on the right through the portal, and the ladies' room is on the left. In the event we have to evacuate the building, you can either exit through the main entrance that you came in, and go to the south side of the parking lot, which is the other side of the pavement, or you can exit through the door behind us. I'll grab the roster, the chief and Frank will sweep the building, make sure everybody's out, we'll take accountability out there. I forgot my yellow book for comments, so I'm winging it. For those of you that weren't here last night, and some of you weren't, Betty is back. Betty Moore is back, along with Cheryl. And they're each working 2.5 days a week. So we now have station coverage from 8 to 4:30? 8 to 4, I'm sorry, 8 to 4. So we welcome Betty back, although she's not here. She was here last night. Thanks to the volunteers for your continued hard work with the training. I guess we don't have training this week.
This week we didn't. No, we started that every 2 weeks.
So thank you for your continued hard work. And that's it for the comments. First up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read them? Mm-hmm. I know there were some corrections in email. Everybody got the others? If not,
Move for approval of the minutes of April 13th work meeting as presented.
there's a motion on the table to approve the April work minutes.
April 12th, 11th.
April 11th work meeting minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say yea. Abstaining, don't say anything. Motion carries. Okay, we also have minutes from the regular meeting in April, which was the 12th. Everybody had a chance to look at those?
Motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
There's a motion on the table by Frank to approve the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting in April, seconded by Chuck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Okay, next up is the treasurer's report.
One more
Which one's
meeting minutes, the May 1st budget meeting.
Did you have a quorum?
That was just, a work meeting, but
The work meeting or not, did you have a quorum?
we don't need a quorum for work meetings, do we?
Then if we didn't have a quorum, why do we have minutes?
It's an open meeting.
It's an open meeting.
You know, all open meetings require minutes. According
It
to the,
wasn't, you didn't have a quorum, so was it actually a meeting yet?
Well, I'm not sure you have to keep minutes of a work meeting, period. That's, if that would be something I want to look at to be 100% sure of it, but you know, if you got a proposed record, quorum or not, you want to adopt it, why don't you do it? You know, that'd be my thought. Somebody's gone to work of making some notes, and you got those and want to adopt them, why don't you?
Since we have minutes,
Yeah.
When I read the little manual for special districts, it says all open meetings
Right,
require minutes. It doesn't say accept
that's correct.
anything, so
The thing is, the work meeting is not a meeting. That's how they survive under the Open Meetings Act. It's not technically a meeting. It's a, they've got exceptions in there, and that falls within the exception to where it would not technically be a open meeting. But if you call it, you know, the other way, you know, the cautious approach is if you call a meeting and you have a public opinion and you generate minutes, go ahead and adopt it. If they meet your standards, if they meet your approval. I know that's clear as mud.
well, since we adopted the work meeting minutes from April 11th, and we did take minutes for the May 1st work meeting, even though there wasn't a quorum, we probably should still vote to accept them, because we just did with the other work meeting.
Yeah, I think I would.
So, is there a motion on the table to accept the work meeting from May 1st?
I'll make the motion.
Motion on the table, it's been seconded.
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded. All in favor say aye.
I abstain.
All opposed?
I abstain.
And there's no abstain, so poll the board.
Jim? Jim?
Yay.
Jay?
Yay.
Sharon? Yay. Mike?
Yay.
Chuck?
No, because I didn't attend the meeting.
Frank?
aye. Yay.
Motion carries. Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Oh, that's me, okay. Our current assets. In capital improvements, we have $195,421.91, and that's going to be really great when we get our roof fixed. District Reserve Fund, we have $14,249.80. Fire Fund checking, we have $5,000. We try to keep it at that so that we don't have any problem. Fire Fund savings, $376,101.76. Fundraising savings account, $18,306.72. Snow Emergency Fund is $125,429.33. Snow Removal Fund is $191,181.52 for a total of $925,691.04. And then I made 2 deposits that will be added in this month's the beginning of this month. So from the county it was in the 20,000 from snow and from fire.
What is shown as the district reserve fund, is that the bond reserve fund?
Yes, and that we can decide that when we had a bond that we have paid off in January, February, we had to keep that 14,000. Now we will be able to transfer that. We just need to find where the appropriate place that it will be needed, but it will be available.
I believe it should go back to the general fund.
So we
And I
will,
would make a motion that that be transferred from the bond reserve fund to the general fund on fire.
There's a motion on the table to transfer that 14,000 to 4980 from the district reserve fund back into the general fund fire. Any more discussion?
I have a question there. Is there a time limit from the time the bond is paid off to the time those funds can be moved?
Unless without a motion, we can't get rid of a fund. What should have been done was the last bond payment should have been paid out of that bond reserve fund in accordance with bond ordinance. That was not done. So now we can't touch that unless we make a motion to do something with it. So that's my idea, is to transfer it back into the general fund, because the bond payment, rather than being paid out of the bond reserve fund, was paid out of the general fund.
Okay, so I'll restate my question because that didn't make it any clearer.
okay, we did not do any transfer before because we had to make sure. I mean, it was a big thing to keep that money in there, and we just had to make sure we were legal in transferring that somewhere and how to go about that, so.
So there is no time limit from the period of when the bond is paid to when the bond excess or reserve funds are available to transfer. You can transfer the
I
next
don't-
day or
No.
something.
I think we could.
No, we should have paid the final payment of the bonds, according to the bond ordinance, according to the bonding papers. That should have been paid out of that fund, out of the bond reserve fund. The final payment, if there's enough money in that reserve fund, should be made out of that fund.
It would have paid maybe half.
And since that wasn't done, since that payment was made out of the general fund, this should repay the general fund by putting it back. Once the bonds are paid off, there are no requirements. However, this is a fund transfer between funds, specifically bond reserve fund. And so in order to do that, we should have the record of it, the motion of it.
I would ask for a withdrawal of the motion. To-
No, I'm not gonna withdraw the motion.
Okay.
It may die for a lack of a second, but at least I've made a motion to do what's proper.
Is there any more discussion? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion on the table by Chuck that's been seconded by Frank to move the district reserve fund of 14,000 plus from that account into the general fund fire checking, as we're gonna put it.
No, in the general fund, fire general fund, which would be the fire fund savings. 1009737.
Moving into that account.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay? Abstained? So poll the board.
Jim,
Yay.
Jay,
Nay.
Sharon,
Aye.
Mike,
Nay?
I'm sorry.
She did not agree.
He's- Restate it, please, she didn't hear.
Nay.
Chuck,
Yes.
Frank,
Aye.
The motion carries 4-2, I think.
It's all right.
42.
Okay, motion carries.
Chairman, I need to go back and correct something. I better look at the statute and make sure I'm not misleading you than I was on that question that Frank raised. They have put a clause in here now that says, workshops are included in the definition of open meetings if a quorum is present. Okay? Yes, if we're putting out agendas notice of a work meeting and we have a quorum present, yes, there should be minutes taken. Okay, just like Frank was saying. The exception is if you, when you make a committee, you go somewhere, look at a piece of equipment or whatever. No public agenda, no public meeting, no minutes. So I was incorrect.
Okay, we didn't have a quorum present, but we did take minutes, so I don't, from what you're saying, and I don't have that in front of me, it's not harmful
No,
to
no,
do the minutes, but it's not required.
that's what it says. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, well,
Any further questions about the treasury report?
any more discussion?
Move to accept the treasurer's report.
Second?
There's a motion on the table to approve the treasurer's report as presented,
No. Yeah,
with the exception of the transfer of that money.
no,
We
that's,
just-
yeah, we accept it as presented, but the motion to transfer the funds is to be done this month.
Right, we passed that.
Yeah, so that we accept it as it is, as she presented it.
Right,
Right.
and it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Clerk's report?
Clerk's report starts on page 7. Typical expenditures, nothing extraordinary this past month. And as far as expenditures as a percentage of budget, we're in most cases on track or slightly below budget projections. Some of that's because we've been revising the budget for the past 4 months, so pending that, we've been limiting expenses as much as we could till we had a good feel for where the board was going to go on budget. Also received the letter from the Kane County Treasurer that's in your books under miscellaneous. This is the annual letter from the county that requires us to provide the certification for assessments of properties within our boundaries. It is due to the county no later than July 30th. Also, they want to know if the lists of taxable parcels are the same as last year or if they have changed. I've tried to get hold of Georgia Baca and have not been able to talk to her yet, but I'll get hold of her next week and find out what format she wants that in, and then I'll have it ready for signature whenever we decide what the assessments are going to be for the 2014 budget year. Questions on that at all? Okay.
Wait, when we do the certification letter, we're going to include a statement about outrage, that they're paying their fire fee for 2013 in this 2014 tax year.
Yeah,
That needs to be included in that letter, just
In
as
the
a
letter.
reminder to them.
yeah, exactly.
In the past, on the number of lots, we've had to give to the county treasurer a list of all the parcel numbers of the lots that were to be assessed. We used to keep a running list of those, and any time that lots were added, or that in many cases what happens if somebody owns 2 lots and they combine them and become one parcel, then it's our responsibility to show the treasurer that that has happened. In 2012, the question came up, and at that time, it was noted that running total had not been maintained for a number of years, and that it was at that time out of date. At that time, Eric Boston had made a proposal to the then board that he would go through that list and make sure it was up to date and do the corrections for it. The board decided not to do that. So I don't know what happened last year, but as of the end of 2012, we knew that there were errors in what was being used.
I've been talking to the county recorder, trying to get a current list, and they say they don't do that. And
That's correct.
the
It's our
treasurer,
responsibility.
well, I'm trying to get the list of property owners from the county, because they provide, they've got the tax rolls, so they should have ownership. And then I can take that and verify it. What the recorder sent me was changes from last year, but I don't have we've got an electronic version of last year, but what I want them to do is send me their current list, and I'll talk to whoever at the county can do that so that we can get a good list of the tax rolls so that we know who owns these properties, what parcels.
Yeah, at that time, we could have paid the county to do it. And that's the way that they said, is that we will do it for you for a fee at that time. That was Dave Owens in the Information Technology Office.
Okay.
I have a current list.
We decided that, pardon?
I have a current list
But-
compiled.
Was that corrected when?
It would have been corrected at the end of 2013 tax season.
By the treasurer's office or by us?
The list I have would have been corrected by the treasurer's office at the end of
Okay,
would have been the basis list the treasurer's office used for the 2013 tax season. Since that time, they mailed to Frank their corrections list for the 2013. Frank forwarded that to me, so between the two items, I have a compilation of the entire list. It is not divided by parcel number, last name, number of parcels. It's divided by subdivision.
okay.
Like I was saying, I'm going to get with Georgia and find out what format she needs, both for the certification of parcels and the certification of the fees per parcel. So we'll do that the way that she needs it, so that we don't run into any problems with that. We purchased a new printer that is now up and running. We've done everything on it that we needed to test to be sure that it's adequate for everything we're doing, and it is. The old printer, on the 15th of this month, we will pay our last bill on that printer. We get to hold on to it till early August at no additional charge. And we're going to use it as our primary copier printer and everything during this next couple of months, so we get our money's worth out of that. And then it's going to be picked up in early August by the folks that own it. On the, just for information, the roof repair has been advertised for bids for several weeks now. Runs until the 22nd of this month, I believe. We've only had one contractor pick up a scope of work so far to do the roof repair. Right now, the bids close on the 22nd, so just for information, there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in doing this work yet, or the word just hasn't gotten out. I don't know. But that's where we are on that. That's all I have.
First of all, I'll move for approval of the, do we need to approve the?
No.
Okay. In January, we talked about our upcoming audit for last year, and you told us in February that it would be done before the end of the fiscal year.
I think I said that it was rescheduled for June.
That's correct. Is
Yeah.
that still on?
It's still on, yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember the date exactly. It's like the 20th or something,
19th and
19th and 20th.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Any other discussion?
20th. Yes. In regards to the taxpayer list, I'm not sure where to start the discussion at. The county, in their communications with the board on multiple occurrences, have stated, we do your fee billing on a gratis basis, and that won't always continue. I don't know how long they've said this for, maybe 3 or 4 years. But it's probably time that, at the very least, we should have established a committee to look into what it would entail to do our own tracking, our own billing, so that when the county decides to either present us a bill or decides to no longer do it, we are prepared to take that task on. So I'd like to make a motion to establish a committee to see what the feasibility is to bring that, the tax, or the fee records and the fee billing in-house.
I have a thought for you on that. The fees show up on the property tax notices that go out. And they still need to do that because you want your fees to clearly be property tax status obligations. Because it affects their, their seriousness, their recoverability, their enforceability. So I don't, whatever you do, you probably wouldn't want to start generating bills from here, would be my thought. But, other inquiries might be purpose.
So the motion is to look into the feasibility of doing this?
Yes.
The other approach is to say, oh yes, you will keep doing this because these are obligations or property tax equivalent obligations, and that's your job to collect and assess property tax and equivalent obligations. So we'll prepare the list and we'll give them to you. But this is your job. We're a political subdivision of the county, and our charges go on your bills, and thank you very much.
I'd be concerned, I think, that if we open up that subject, it may cause the ball to start rolling that direction. And I'm not sure we would want to do that.
I understand that thought and concern. But I feel like the past statements have become more forceful. And the county is looking tightly at their finances. They're looking tightly at what their outlay is for this district. On the backside, they are expecting us to come forward and help out in some manner with the state fire fund. And we know that those averages have been somewhere in the $70,000 to $80,000 range on an annual basis. So they're going to look to recoup that if we choose not to participate somewhere else. I will withdraw the motion at this time.
Why don't we give that thought till next month? Because there's other ramifications to that too. If we start, for example, we start doing the billing for the taxes that are delinquent, that people aren't paid. Right now, they're carrying the ball to do that. We would have to pick that up too. Filing these liens and so on and so, that's a lot that goes into that. It's not just billing.
Just for clarification and to expound on Ed's thought. I'm only interested in a system of checks and balances in-house versus trusting the information that we're being given. I'm asking was asking to put a verification process in place to make sure that we are in fact receiving.
I believe that's why the county is audited, is to make sure that they are doing their work correctly.
Okay.
And their auditors are the same as
I'm not
same auditor we're using, so that there is a coordination between our audit and the county's audit.
I'm not accusing the county of any wrongdoing by any means, and I hope you didn't take that. But the format that the county uses to divide up by subdivision, as a district, we don't use that format. The only time we use the subdivision format is in a response or in a call situation to generate a direction of travel. But as far as talking about particular subdivisions, it's a very infrequent occurrence that we do that. But that's how the county assesses the tax bill, or that's how they record the assessments, is per subdivision.
Have you withdrawn the motion?
I withdrew the motion.
Let's table that and think about that. Put it on the agenda for next month as an item. How about that? I mean, it's not gonna happen overnight, so it's not like we have to do this yesterday.
Absolutely.
Okay? Let's move on to the chief's report.
All right, we responded to 3 calls since our last board meeting. One was an EMS call to assist Alton Ambulance. One was a grass fire where we assisted Glendale Fire Department. And one was a rollover where we also assisted Alton Ambulance. We've had training, 17.5 hours of in-house training for driver's education, driver's training, firefighter survival, company operations, search and rescue practices. 21 hours of wildland training on portable pumps, drafting, aggressive relay systems, that sort of thing. All the pack tests have been completed, and I've submitted the certifications and the recertifications for wildland firefighter 2. Vehicle maintenance has been done. Weekly rig checks have been performed. The MOU inspections are now complete. We had almost all of them completed, but they still had to come back for the loader. That has been done. It was done last week, so all of them are done. Tender 72 is in limited service right now. They took the mechanic take the brake pads off of the emergency brake, so we could go in there and put new pads on it. Basically, he couldn't find the replacement parts, so he's taking them and putting new pads on them. We can still use the vehicle; it just does not have an emergency brake, so we just have to use the chocks. Plow vehicle, right out here, The plow is still out of service, and we're still working on some of the lighting for the safety inspection through the state. But I asked the mechanic that is working on engine 72 if he could take a look, once he gets done with 72, if he could take a look at the plow vehicle to give us a bid on what it would take to get that plow in operation. For the EMR training, the books came in, and I've been distributing the books to people that are going to be in the class. Like I said, there's a total of 21 students. 18 of them are going to be from here, from our fire department. Again, everything's on track for that. We should start our class June 6th. As far as fire department physicals, all the full-time residents that are members of our fire department have conducted their physicals. I'm still getting people that are weekenders or summer people coming up and get their physicals done. And then pagers. We're waiting for it. There was a little bit of a glitch and some paperwork that was resubmitted, but we're just waiting for Hamilton to receive our pagers, the 10 that we ordered. The grant that I put in, it was received and reviewed by the state. Word that I got from Earl was that we were on the first draft, when they were looking through everything, we were going to get everything that we requested on a grant. But then he said that it's going to be submitted for a second review as well. So that may or may not affect what we get. We're going to get a letter mid-month of June letting us know exactly what we will get. So we shouldn't count anything until then, but I'm optimistic.
What was that, 50/50 grant?
It was for $15,000 for turnouts. It's 100%.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. The 5-ton has been picked up by UFRA, and it was moved from the state yard. It's now in UFRA's yard up in Salt Lake City, and it's theoretically in transit to us, but they're gonna. I'm not sure when we're gonna get it. It's on its way, but I don't have a specific time. So that's it.
Do we have an estimate yet on the work that will have to be done on that to make it operational?
We're gonna have to paint it. Have to get a tank for it. We have a pump and a hose reel for it. So I estimated about $12,000 for equipment and paint. And then I still have to take a better look at our pump to see what we have to do to recondition this pump to make sure it's operational.
Is that the pump off of old Tender 71 that you're talking about?
Yes.
That doesn't belong to us.
No.
That belongs to FEEP and should have gone with Tender 71 when we got rid of it. How long will it take to get all this done?
Well,
To get it up and running?
I don't have an estimate.
What I'm questioning is, would we be better off to ask for 71 back, put that pump on that where it belongs, and use that in the interim till this truck can be fully equipped and operational?
The pump and the hose reel that we have out here was supposed to go with 71, but we kept it. And I've gotten permission to use it on the new 5-ton, so we can do that. So it's going from one loaner rig to another loaner rig, so we're okay that way. I don't think it would be beneficial to us to take 71 because we'd have to repair it. We'd have to repair the water tank and repair it doesn't have a starter. And there's some issues with some of the tires. And there's other just maintenance issues that we would have to. So we'd have to spend a deal of money to get 71 up and running. Besides, 71 is actually, Penguich has it now. They've already taken, they picked it up because we didn't want it back. So I think it would be better to use the equipment that we have and the funds that we would put towards 71, put that towards the 5-ton, retitle it, it'll be our new engine set, our Tender 71. And I think we would be better off as a district in the long run doing that.
Does this include the funds necessary to make it operational as a tactical tender or just as a tender?
I've included the funds for, or the estimate was for a tactical tender.
So it includes boxes to put the hose in, hoses, chainsaw, all the equipment?
Yeah, it will be set up basically like Tender 72 with some, maybe an attack line of inch and 3/4 or inch and 3 posts as well.
Okay, so we were estimating that at 12,000, correct?
That's my estimate.
Pardon?
Yes, that's my estimate.
Okay. That'll come from capital improvements?
My understanding of this 5-ton is we were just acquiring it to look at it.
Correct.
Right, we're not doing anything with it,
Mhm.
because you had said to me, all you've seen is pictures of it.
Correct. I haven't seen it physically yet, other than the pictures, and I've got a spec sheet on it.
So we haven't targeted any money to do any work on this vehicle other than we're bringing it here to look at it. That's-
Correct.
is that-
My estimates are if we
Yes,
pursue
yes.
that.
Okay. Anything else? Is that the whole report?
Yes, my whole report.
Comments? Questions?
I have one question. Pagers out of Hamilton. Does Hamilton still have the big radio that was given to them 6 months or so ago for repair?
He does.
What's the status on that?
I asked for it back, and he said that he was going to repair it. So I that was on the phone. So the next time I'm down there in person, I'll try to take possession of it.
Yeah, I think 6 months is more than enough time for him to be looking at that, and we ought to get it back, and if
thought it
it
was-
needs repair, let's get it to someplace that can do the repair on
It
it.
goes into engine 70, or I'm sorry, Tender 72. He was under the impression that it was a spare radio, and he just put it on his things I need to do when I get time list. So I kind of told him that we needed the radios back.
Yeah, especially with the summer season
Absolutely.
coming in. That's all I have, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to old business. The first item there is ICS 100 and 700. I think we're waiting for you. so
Okay.
this is
I
a-
haven't put the 3 hours together at a time yet, and I can sit down and go through it, but I will. You'd feel bad if you didn't have something to put in email.
Your fingers better?
I'm just waiting to see how long you leave it on there.
I have a hard time waiting, Chuck, for so long because we're not compliant with the NIMS grant process.
I understand that, but I don't think it's a requirement of the state grant that you applied for. Have we applied for any federal grants?
I don't believe we have any federal grants,
But I plan to.
but it could become a limiting factor, so if you could get those.
He helps you bug me.
Sorry. I am relentless though, just so you know.
So am I.
Okay, we'll move on from that one. You're up again. You got the reports on the Community Fire Council.
In following the fire chief's report is the information on the mulch fest that we'll be doing, and that's coming out in the Outlook before the end of the month. That same information. Frank informed me last night that we received the first reply of people that are signing up for it. We're mulching the chipper will not be available until midsummer. And we're trying to get information out also through the homeowners associations where they exist. And we look forward to really start pushing it after the 1st of June.
In that outlook, is that schedule of when subdivision is gonna be mulched? Is that in it?
We got away from that. We had originally decided that had thought that we were gonna mulch them on a schedule.
Right.
And then we decided that this might be a better way of doing it, of just taking it and mulching it as it gets put out, starting in mid-June. And so that the reason that we're getting the forms filled out is so that we can then assign, we'll know where these areas are, and that they can just be continually going through the subdivision and mulching it as it's put out.
Are you keeping a record of all these forms?
Any other comments or questions about this?
Do
Just for the-
do you want us to make copies of this to put out at all the public events, Duck Creek Days, 4th of July, all that stuff?
Yes. Yeah, I'd like to get it posted around. Many of the areas have bulletin boards, such as yours down at Strawberry by the dumpsters, and down at Swains Creek on their water barn, and up at Meadowview on their sign there at the corner of the cut. And if we could get it there with extra sign-ups, that they could just take one off and sign it up, would be good. As much of this information as we can get out, there are a number of bulletin boards available throughout the area that we can post things on that I don't think we're using to our best advantage.
Yeah, I think word needs to get out every place and as often as we can. So every opportunity, when we have the open house here, we'll have some out here for that too.
This is a copy of the packet that we're going to be handing out. It's got information as far as when you're supposed to put things on the curb, and lengths and diameters for chipping and for. And on the back page here, it's got a sign-up sheet. So I'm going to be handing these out at I'm going to different homeowners association meetings.
Right.
So I'll be passing them out there. But you're right, for our events here, they'll be out. And we'll have some here for the station, so if anybody comes by the station looking for information, just pass them out that.
Yeah, it's a great program. We just need to help people find out about it.
Right, and I think that's been one of the things we've failed at is giving a notice in a lot of cases where we could have done better. We should be using these community bulletin boards as much as we can, and the homeowners associations newsletters as much as we can. One of the things that we need to stress is that get this done this year, because if your lot isn't cleaned up next year, we're going to proceed into a nuisance ordinance citations, and then they'll have to be paying for it themselves. This way we're giving them the chance to get it done, get the chipping done free.
So we don't have a window of dates when the mulcher is gonna be in certain subdivisions. However, in the form, there's dates when they're gonna be in the subdivisions, is that,
I didn't see any.
no. So I have the same concern as before, and not that it's not a good program, but you can see if people are putting the stuff out at different times, is Earl Levanger's mulcher gonna just circle 142 square miles continuously for the summer months to mulch all this stuff?
From July 1st to August 17th.
And they're gonna do that? They're gonna just continually,
Yeah.
okay.
They did it once before.
But I understood that,
Yeah, that was about 4 or 5 years ago.
some people put stuff out and they didn't circle like they were supposed to, and these piles were left out all winter. Is that pretty accurate? That was my concern, is that happening.
The last day for piling anything in the subdivision is August 17th. So
Okay.
the mulching or the chipping starts on July 1st. So you can pile it up from now until August 17th.
Okay,
And the chippers will continue after August 17th. So.
Yes, but it's right here that you're not supposed to, all the piles are supposed to be in place by August 17th.
Can these piles be in your front yard?
Adjacent to the right of way.
Yeah. At a 90-degree angle, so
Exactly.
so you can just,
But also it says not to any culvert or,
not to block anything.
right. But most every yard has a culvert there for water drainage.
I would say, setting it at a 90-degree angle, but just back from the culvert. So you're not blocking the culvert. You'll just have to reach over the culvert.
Exactly. Okay. I'm planning.
Okay, good.
okay. Thanks, Chuck. Next up is the amended budget / fee. And some of you folks were here last night. We had the public hearing. And I don't think we need to repeat everything that was said last night. There's a proposal on the table that we go back to the $85 a watt for fire. The board last year has us down to 65, and I've said it 100 times that we got more expenses than revenue right now. So the proposal was to go back up to $85 for fire, which historically has been the fee, and for snow, to go from 110 to 115 a lot, which allows us to meet our contractual obligation if we get a certain amount of snowfall, because right now we can't. There was a lot of good discussion last night, a lot of questions. It was a good public hearing. We were here for an hour. A lot of stuff got talked about. I think everybody got their questions answered. So, is there any more comments from the board? Because you had last night to think about it. Any discussions?
I would just recommend that we vote on the budget first, because that drives the fees.
I would move to adopt the proposed 2014 budget as presented at the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion on the table to accept the budget that was, the 2014 budget that was proposed at the public hearing. And it was seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say nay. Abstain? Motion carries.
I would make a motion to set the 2014 fire fee at $85 and the 2014 snow fee at $115.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion to set the fees at $85 a lot for fire and $115 for snow.
Not to accept them, but to set them.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Say nay. Abstaining? Motion carries. So that now piggybacks on what Frank was talking about in his clerk's report, that we're going to draft up a letter and send it off to the county, that we've adjusted the fees in the budget.
Yeah.
To include the Elkridge, a statement about, go ahead.
Before I put the letter together, I gotta get the list of lots together
Yes.
first, so, yeah, there's the sequence. I'll work with you on that too.
Okay, next up on the agenda is the Dixie Levitt insurance policy. And I had sent out a couple of months ago a proposal from Dixie Levitt on the liability insurance. And the cost was substantially different than what we're now paying. The rate is determined by the amount of volunteers that we have. And that seems to be fluctuating greatly as it's going up and up and up. That determines the rate that we're going to have to pay. Frank and I talked about it, and I think we renewed the policy at the current levels. But we do have the option of during this year to increase it when, well, now that the budget has been amended and maybe the volunteer numbers will level off, we can visit it again. So this wasn't something to vote on, I just wanted to make everybody aware that that's where we're at with that.
How on the liability on our firefighters, if they're injured at a fire or at a training or responding to a call, whenever it is they're covered, how well are they covered? How much is that coverage?
I can just check if they're injured or if they die.
Pardon?
What is the, how well are they covered is the only part I got. If they're injured or if they die? What is the?
If they're injured first,
Okay. I'm going from memory here. If they're injured, there is coverage, but it's very minimal. I want to say it's $10,000 to $15,000 is the coverage limit per occurrence.
that won't cover a broken leg.
I didn't tell you what it would cover. I just told you what the policy says, what I can recall.
If they're disabled on the job, what's the coverage?
I believe it was a 6-month. There's some type of formula or calculation that they look back to see what their earnings capacity or power was, and they give them 6 months of wages, and that's the limit. We have the very minimal coverage in all categories.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we look to increase that coverage. For example, in my auto insurance, if I injured somebody in an automobile accident, I'm covered up to $1 million, $2 million total, $1 million each occurrence. I think that we ought to be looking at that type of insurance for our volunteers. I think that if they're injured, we should fully cover their costs, not just up to a certain point. I think that if they're disabled, we should have a good disablement policy for them. and something that their families can survive on if they're disabled. And I would like us to look into that and see if we can't cover our volunteers to provide for these type of things.
We are talking apples and oranges just a little bit.
Pardon?
We are talking apples and oranges just a little bit because the volunteers, the workers' comp policy, and workers' comp's a different arena from liability. When you have workers' comp, the advantage to us is the prospect of separate lawsuit and lawyers for negligence liability, that kind of thing is gone. It's all governed by schedule and statute for volunteers. Having said that, however, I do believe that there are Ford policies and Cadillac policies, and you can upgrade and get higher coverage, and I would guess we probably just have the statutorily required minimums, right? And so the conversation, if you want to have it, is perfectly appropriate, but the idea that there's needed more protection for liability on the volunteer side, as in personal injury lawsuit stuff, that doesn't exist.
I understand that, but what I was just trying to point out is that on the liability side, I'm looking at coverage of that amount. I don't think that 15,000 will cover a broken leg. If something happens and they're hospitalized for 3 or 4 days and have a couple surgeries on that because the leg bone is shattered, it's going to cost much more than that. And I think that our volunteers should not have to be looking at out-of-pocket expenses if they're injured on the job.
There was never any question that the information that was sent to us needed to be revisited. That is not why we didn't act on it. Until 20 minutes ago, we were still operating with the different budget.
I understand.
And what I will do is I will resend to everyone the document that the insurance company sent to us, and I need feedback. We need to look into it and talk about the numbers that are there. So I'll resend it out again with the hope that
What I'm trying to say is that we do need to look at this, and we do need better coverage.
We looked at it, I say we, Mike and I went down and visited with Dixie Levitt, I believe it was in February.
Mike and you did, but I didn't go along, and I feel very strongly.
I scanned an email to you, and Mike also emailed to you what they gave us as a proposed, what we asked for. We asked for exactly what you're stating here today, that we believed our volunteers needed better coverage, more coverage, so that they could be made whole, so that in any event of an accident or incident, there would be no out-of-pocket expense for them. So, as Mike said, they'll resend that out, but the policy premium difference to upgrade to have a standard high. You can ask for higher than their standard high, but they just gave us, hey, if you want to go from the minimum required to our standard high, here's the premium difference. And I want to say it was in the neighborhood of, it wasn't very much on an annual basis, $10,000 to $12,000. But at the time, we didn't have that money in the budget.
No, I think we should revisit it. That's what I'm saying.
I think we're all in agreement with that.
Yeah.
It's not,
we
yeah,
are.
just a matter of doing it.
We
Yeah.
are. Is that it? No more discussion? Let's move on. New business. And these are three policies, and J. Frank does the report. Or Frank J. Who's J. Frank?
VA 100 was the old chief's policy job description. We have that in our books.
It's in miscellaneous.
What we did from old to new was we updated the format. And then we changed the heading to comply with format, purpose, policy, procedure, and responsibilities versus a duty statement, as the policies and procedures currently don't allow for duty statement. And in that, we will look at the second page. We compressed it from 4 pages to 3 pages. And if you look at the second page, under the header procedure, that used to be entitled performance duties. Instead of putting it in an ABC or 1, 2, 3 format, we put it into a paragraph form. In the same way with responsibilities, we compress that into a paragraph form. Probably the most significant change we made in the editing of it was in the old policy there was multiple ISO references. We compressed the ISO references, and then under responsibilities, one of the responsibilities previously came up was that the chief must attend or have a board designee for the chief attend the meeting. So in the proposed policy, we removed board designee with the thought that there is no person in the district better to choose a designee for what they do than that individual person, that being the chief. So as a board, we shouldn't dictate to him who his designee should be, because we don't have any idea who that best person for the job is. Or I should say, we don't have as good of an idea who the best person for the job is as he does, who he would last to represent. So we removed that language of the board would designate his designee, allow the chief to choose his own designee if he could not be in attendance.
I disagree with that. We as a board can appoint the fire chief. We should be able to review the person that he wants as his designee to make sure that they meet our minimum qualifications for that. Because we don't know if he's gonna give us one person 1 month and somebody else another month. And getting back to what I stated last month, I believe that the chief should attend our meetings. He is our employee. This is the only chance we get to speak with him about the operation of the department. As you stated in January, that we, as individual board members, should not be going to the chief. That we should go through you as chairman. So this gives us only one meeting a month, or one time a month. Actually, it's less than 40 hours a year, which is less than around 2% of the total time. And for us to interact with our employee only 2% of the time, I know when I worked for somebody, they sure as heck interacted with me more than that. And I respect it, that this is our time to do it, not come in here every day and talk to him. So I still feel that we should approve whoever he designates as his attendee, but I would certainly encourage him to be at all meetings.
I would ask that you go back and listen to the February meeting recording, because I did not state that the board could not interact with the chief. What I said was, if the chief receives direction from the chairman when we're not together, I never said that you can't talk with him. And I think the board would agree with that. I hope they would. If you don't agree with it, I think you should go back and listen to the meeting minutes. 'Cause that's what I said. There have been board members interacting with the chief since day one when we took over. They're not giving him direction, but they're interacting. However, that's neither here nor there. I think what this policy is saying is that he has the opportunity to appoint his designee and doesn't have to go through us to appoint a designee to do presentations at meetings. I think that's what that says. I'm looking on page 3, about halfway down.
Mm-hmm.
The sentence actually starts, what says?
Well, I know right where it is in here.
Okay.
Got it, I'm just, in the past, it said that the board approved. And I still think that's proper.
Okay.
If I may, I agree basically with what Chuck says, that the chief should be at all our meetings. I think that there may be a situation where he's sick or something comes up where we as a board may not be able to get together to approve a designee for him to be at the meeting if the chief cannot be. I think if we end up putting ourselves in a position where we have to approve whoever's going to be here, it's going to be problematic for us. And
I think that if he gave us a name that would be his designee when he wasn't here, and we could look at it and approve it, and that would be his designee. Somebody that he trusts, that he keeps informed and is informed on the fire department operation.
Do we have comments here from Sharon?
There are times when there are training sessions. You should be here most of the time, but there are times when there are training sessions that he needs to be to. And we aren't the experts. He is the expert. We have hired him, we pay him, we trust him to know what is going on. And I think he should be the one to choose and it may vary. Maybe somebody won't be here, so he chooses someone else. That's up to the chief. I don't believe that's our responsibility.
Ed?
Well, my thought would be that you could separate the issues. The statement in the policy, attend in person or through designee all meetings of the governing board, assist them in meeting their obligations. It strikes me as being a very fair anticipatory statement of, the possibility that a fire happens one Saturday morning we have a meeting, so somebody's got to be there. But then the board's direction and preference on interacting with the chief doesn't actually have to be stated in here. Just make it very clear, if this is what you want, the trainings don't get scheduled during board meetings, and the expectation is that unless there's an emergency, you'll be here. But this is just a general description of job activities, and leave it at that.
I think what brought this whole issue up, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that particular training, when this came up, when you weren't here, the chief wasn't here, and that training was given by Earl Levanger, and he made a special trip up here to do it, and the chief needed it. And that's what caused this issue, because I'm in agreement with Frank and Chuck, as a matter of fact. I mean, he needs to be here to give his report. I don't think anybody's debating that. It's just this one instance when this training came up. The guy comes up from, where does he live, in Orderville, or wherever he lives? Came up here to do the training, he needed the training.
That's very good, but he wasn't here during the January meeting. He missed part of the April meeting. He won't be here during the June meeting. That's 3 out of our first 6 meetings.
But he is available for any concern you might have to any of us at almost any time.
You weren't here for the January meeting?
No, I was at the Winter Fire School.
Good catch. I don't remember that.
And where he is a participant in training, he is not always able to dictate when that training occurs. And so, as a part of happenstance or circumstance, that training may be only offered once a year for the betterment of the district, so that he can teach and train our volunteers. Much of this training he needs to be at. And so we do have to understand that while he is responsible to us, his greater responsibility is to the citizens of the district and to the training of our volunteers.
Jim?
What we used to have was an assistant chief. We don't now. When the chief wasn't there, the assistant chief took his place, but we have a captain. The captain could take his place. He'll write everything up for him to say. And it'll still be somebody sitting in that seat.
I think what Chuck is trying to point out is that he thinks that the board should approve who gives the report. That's what the issue is, not who's giving the report.
I think the chief should decide who he wants to speak for him.
I think we're going round and round here. We're doing.
I would make a motion to accept the policies as written.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the table to accept policy number 5A100 as it's written and seconded by Sharon. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Abstain. Motion carries. Next one.
Next one. 4A109. We have a typo. Bear with me. We have 2A109s. We have a 3A and a 4A. So it caused some confusion. We'll talk about 4A109 first. 4A109 is the district policy on sexual harassment in a hostile work environment. Over the course of the past several years, it has, it seems to have, not sure the proper wording here, maybe to say sexual harassment, hostile work environment, seem to be some of our most prevalent issues within the station, within the personnel, the volunteers, the administration, and the board members. As the policy is current, we did not rewrite a new policy. We didn't even update the old policy because we want to have this discussion with the board first. As the policy is currently written, it doesn't directly address board members. it addresses only employees. Now, you may be able to take into account that a volunteer would fall under that, and that the volunteer should sign this policy and be made aware of this policy. But one thing we as a board haven't done is we haven't supplied any training to our employees, to our volunteers, or to our board members on what constitutes sexual harassment or what constitutes a hostile work environment. So I think we as a board need to find out how we can get this training, how we can provide it to our employees, our volunteers, and our board members, and that all of those involved in the operation of the district, those three categories, participate in the training, sign the statement, and be made aware of what constitutes it and what can happen if you partake of it.
I agree with what you're saying. However, are you looking at 1013-2010 revision?
I am looking at 1013.
Well, if you look under policy, section 2, third paragraph, it says employees and elected officers who engage in sexual harassment. So it does address board members. Wait a minute. If you look under responsibilities, 4A, it actually says employees and elected officials. And I think there's a typo there, but officers should be officials.
Now that you brought that up, you go to the last page where you sign. The signature line is only for the employee. The statement is only for the employee. So there's not a continuity throughout the entire policy on who it applies to and who's doing the signing. So it does definitely need to be rewritten. However, even though we have a policy, we're not providing any training. And I don't know if Ed would speak to this. Ed, if we ended up in a litigation case where we have a policy, but we didn't provide the training, are we not accepting that liability?
Well, my thoughts about it are just a little bit different, as usual. The play we dealt with recently has me thinking about EEOC and some of these issues. This policy, I think, is deficient in several ways. Its definition of sexual harassment and a bunch of things aren't quite what I'd like to see. If you have a contested case, I prefer not to have this be the policy that got administratively dealt with for a variety of reasons. There's just stuff in it that's kind of not quite right. But the hostile work environment and sexual, these things get thrown around. But it's patterns of conduct and some of this kind of stuff. I have the specific worry that these statements would be construed as a higher standard than the law actually requires. That's one concern. But you're absolutely right. You know, the experience we're having, hostile work environment. Oh, somebody's called me a name or said something bad about me. Oh, this is hostile. That's not what it is. It's more than that. So they're. I'm not lobbying for work, but there are several things in it that give me that kind of concern.
For the policy itself, but the training is, I think, the other point that you're bringing up.
I think training for all would be a good idea.
Just for the board's information on, and I could get this information on the FEMA website, there is an independent study course that deals with sexual harassment / hostile work environment. And I can get the actual reference number. I hate to say this, Chuck, but we can all take that course. It's not going to cost us anything. And it's not a long thing. It only takes an hour to take the thing. But it talks about some of the things that you're saying.
I would like to make a motion that since Ed would be the one defending us, and I don't know if it's proper to include sexual harassment and what hostile work environment in the same policy, or divide them out. But I would like to make a motion that since Ed would be the one defending us, that we ask Ed to write us a policy that you can defend and enforce.
I have a plan B for you. All of you guys have worked with big companies that have written policies in place. Let's collect some of those and look at them. And then see where we go. Because, general practitioner, these big companies are gonna have things that have been written by guys who specialize in this area. And it's a really quick and inexpensive way of getting some real expertise on this. And then let's assemble something. I can do some of that. That's one of the things I'd start with, is I'd get on the internet and see what some big outfits have said about it and find one that seems to match us.
I could talk with Ron again
Yeah.
and get the policy from the county. I'm sure they have one.
So,
Let's just hold up on it and do what he's talking about.
let's launch the process, but let's do it informally, and let's collect some samples, and then see where we go.
SUU has a HR person that when we were hiring Chief Miller, I called and she sent me information on questions we could ask, questions we couldn't ask. So that's another, and she didn't charge anything.
They work.
No,
So we're gonna get.
motion to draw.
I'm sorry?
Motion to draw.
Well, no, I think you're right, though. I think we are doing something.
Wait, are we continuing?
I think we are doing something.
But do we need a motion to do that, or are we just,
I don't think we need a motion to do it. We're just gonna collect
Right.
various, what I heard.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's agreeing is that we get some policies from major companies on sexual harassment / hostile work environment, and look at them first before we move forward and task Ed, which is gonna cost us a couple $100 or more.
Let's get the,
Let's do the policies,
free
let's
stuff
get
first.
that. I'll call Human Resources, be in touch with that lady at SUU, get some information from her.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure these policies are not
They're very common.
classified as the wrong word, secure. They're available that we can look at.
So you're gonna call me
I'm calling Ron again, I'm calling the lady at SUU. And Frank, you get in touch with DOD.
you sure you want to go there?
No. Okay, and anybody else that come up with a policy from somewhere?
Betty, did we have a written policy on sexual harassment? We adopted one along with our standards, didn't we?
I believe we did. I'm not sure we did.
Well, the policy that you folks had from the previous board is this policy.
Yeah.
After the incident that happened in 2010, this got rewritten to add some things to it. That's where we're at now with this one.
No, for our business, I think we had
Oh,
one
okay.
in order to satisfy the insurance company. And I was just wondering if we can dig that one out.
We'll table this till the next meeting.
Yeah.
Put it back on again.
I'd like the record to show that I actually acted in the district's interest and against my own personal best interest in making that result.
Erase that part of the tape. Okay, next one.
The next one is 3A209. There's been some inter-board discussion on this policy. 3A209, the revision on the fence, 2011, June 11th of 2011. The subject is called Accounting 70-30% Split for Administrative Costs Between Fire and Snow. As the Policies and Procedures Review Committee, the first order I have that I have a question on is, this policy existed on June 11, 2011. I talked with Sharon, I talked with previous board member Patricia Colai. We both stated sometime during the spring of 2012, this policy was deleted. So I went back through the written minutes for 2012 and could find no record of this particular policy being deleted. Then I listened I was in attendance at the January, February, and March meetings of 2012, but I went back and I listened to those meetings all the way up through June of 2012. This policy number is not discussed, the title is not discussed, the subject is not discussed. However, in the work meeting for the March 2012 meeting, this policy is discussed in depth. Excuse me, February meeting. I think it's February meeting. No, it's the March meeting. February or March work meeting, this policy is discussed in depth. The following day, regular scheduled board meeting, Andre Oland presents a list of 10 policies by number only. There's no discussion. These policies have been amended. The board accepts the amendment, and he makes the statement, if you want to know what these 10 policies are, you can come get them later from the office. At that time, I did that. This particular policy was not one of them. In January, when Frank and I volunteered to do the Policies and Procedures Committee, we went through every member's book. And this policy and procedure was absent from every book. So while it appears the intention was, let's get rid of it, there was no formal action. Unless you can show me differently. But they didn't write it in the minutes, which is the formal record. And then there's in the audio recordings, there's no discussion. But in the work meetings, there definitely was discussion and intention. The policies and procedures, the state code clearly says they can only be amended through an action of the board. So my questions become two, or one, do we need this policy, the 70-30 split, since we've changed the method in which we do snow? And then two, if we determine that we do need it, there needs to be some pretty significant changes, I think, to the verbiage of the policy. You guys have see the floor.
You can have
Discussion?
We need to make a motion to get rid of it or keep it? Or what?
It's, oh, by the way, I'm sorry,
On the discussion on it,
it's under miscellaneous. For
I feel that the 70-30 split was too high. However, I do feel that there are expenses associated with the snow removal being carried by through the fire department, and while this maybe we're talking about 5% or 3% or something, and because during the bidding period there's costs associated with the bidding, notices, things of that type that have been paid for out of fire. There's legal costs, there's costs for the clerk during the year of making the payments, and the treasurer of making the payments from the snow fund that should be covered, the fire should be reimbursed for these expenses. And so while I think that the 70% is too high, or 30% is too high, I still think that there's probably 3 to 5, maybe 7% that should be paid from snow to fire. And what I would recommend is that the clerk attempt to determine what those costs might be, and before we get rid of this, we look at, well, I know, it feels bad if I don't do something for you. And
I'll feel bad if I don't do something back too.
that we rather than getting rid of it, because we haven't budgeted for it for 2 years, it's been laying dormant, that we look at whether, and maybe revising it to put better numbers in.
Let me give you some history of this, since my name is on this. It was my idea back in 2011. The percentages were not just pulled out of the air. I had the 4 paid staff members at the time, we had 4, keep a log of their activities for a week, of when they were working on fire versus when they were working on snow. And that's how those numbers came about. And I'm agreeing that it may be too high now because we don't have 4 paid staff anymore. So it may be too high.
Yeah, at that time, we had the assistant chief was acting as snow manager. Under the new contracts, that hasn't been required, and so while this was probably accurate at the time, I question whether it is now.
Let me offer a thought, if I may. I'm not real big on arbitrary, I think this is okay. What if you gave me this year to kind of track this a little bit and then rescind this policy because it's obviously not accurate. And then we'll have a new policy for 1 January or something for next year based on, as near as we can determine, what we actually spend towards snow removal. Because some of these on the surface look ridiculous, but when you think about it, vehicle fuel, the snow manager has to drive around and look at the areas. So there may be some, 0.1% of our fuel costs might be
I used my
to
own
that.
truck, no fuel.
Okay,
All there was 3 checks a month written for expense.
okay.
Contractors had their form for the contract, they sent it in, we took the lowest bid. Can't we just figure out a fee per year, which would cover, you write 3 checks? We didn't have an extra truck, the truck we had was a plow truck out there, and the blade was broke, so I just used my own truck. I called them on my own time, I went out, made sure they was all working.
Okay,
Before
so,
we paid for all this stuff, last couple of years, we haven't paid a dime for it.
I think
you're hitting on admin supplies. There's an amount of time and money and stuff in making copies for the bids.
We
have to go through the bid
One
process.
time, wasn't it, Sharon, that maybe set like $5,000 for the lawyer and the copies and
I don't
the little
know.
office expense, but we never did vote it in when we were talking about that.
I was against deleting it because there are all year long. It doesn't just once snow is over, it's over. All year long, there are there's a variety of things. And I think, I like the idea of giving him a year to figure it out, but
I say we make it exciting and short there for 6 months.
I think the cause of this, the discussion is, correct me if I'm wrong, you can't find any record of this thing ever being deleted. That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
That's
So,
one of the.
if we want to do, if Frank's idea, or whoever brought, I don't know if it was Chuck or Frank, brought it up about 6 months or a year, let's do some some statistics on how much time is actually spent on one versus the other. And if you want to delete this in the meantime, somebody make a motion to formally take this out of the policies and procedures book and second it. We'll take it out, and then we'll go forth with the idea of keeping some statistics on how much time the staff is spending on one versus the other.
I think we probably thought that that was included in those 10
Well,
policies.
whatever
but
the
we
reason
should-
was, there's no
Yeah.
record of it, so.
But,
I'll make the motion that we delete this.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion on the table, and it's been seconded to delete policy number 3A209. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstain? Okay, the policy's deleted.
We have an opportunity here, we have the 2015 budget coming up. The contracts are renewable in 2015.
That's a Star Trek thing.
I know it's incredibly a lot to ask for one particular line item. But perhaps we could add this one line item to snow for the 2015 budget since we won't have to, there are still expenses associated with snow. We won't have to deal with it until the 2015 budget per se. That would give us kind of 3 months to figure out. State code allows for us to do our best guess, our best reasonable guess on anticipated expense. So we would defer to your judgment on when.
Yeah, give me some time to kind of figure it out.
In the 2008 era, we handled it by a transfer through the budgeting process of a fund transfer from snow to fire to cover those costs. So if you go back into those budgets, you'd be able to see some history on it too, rather than handling it by that policy. If you can't find those budgets, I've got them.
If we're gonna start working on the 2015 budget, say in the August, September timeframe, is that when we're gonna start doing that? Which, from last night, that's around the time that we're supposed to start. It actually says November, but I think that's too late. So if we do it then, why don't you have, you got June, July, August, September, you got 4 months of history to keep some records, does that make sense?
Actually, since he's finished the budget for 2014, why can't he start on 15 tomorrow?
He hasn't actually finished.
In your spare time.
I make a motion that this be a paid position. No,
Okay.
disregard that.
So is that seriously, that's the plan of attack? Frank's got about 4 months here or even the staff folks, to start keeping a log of what you're doing, how much time, however you want to do it, work it out with Frank, so he's not doing all the work. But start keeping a log of what you're dedicating to fire versus snow. And we'll have some information, so when we start working on the budget here come September, August and September, we'll have some information what to include. Does that make sense?
For the record, I'd like to make the rest of the board aware and the public that Frank hasn't actually finished the 2014 budget. We've just approved it. And now he has to go back and figure out where every single penny we've spent, what category to put that into. So he still has quite a bit of work to do going forward on the 2014 budget.
He's got 3 hours tonight from 1
Well,
to 4.
You gotta remember, his wife's gone for another 2 weeks.
Frank, it's not a lie.
We appreciate you.
Okay. I think we beat that dead horse. It's dead. Do you want to take a few minutes break here to do restroom duty, nature break? We've been going for about an hour and 45 minutes. Yes? Board,
5 minutes.
you want to keep going?
It's up to you guys.
All right,
Let's take a 5 minute break.
at this time, it's 11:47, Cedar Mountain Fire Protection District. May monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees is going to adjourn for
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Not adjourn, we're in recess, I'm sorry. We're recessing for 5 minutes. It's 11:55 hours on May the 12th, May the 10th, 2014. This is the Cedar Mountain Fire Protection District monthly meeting. We're back in session. Next up on the agenda is Jay with addressing volunteers during meetings.
I wasn't at the April meeting, I attended by phone, so there were some difficulties by phone. But one of the things that jumped out at me was, as board members, we addressed Andy Gagliardo as a communications officer, as a volunteer. And very specifically for the volunteers, they report to the chief, he manages them on a day-to-day basis, they manage the district on a day-to-day basis. They provide a service to the district on a day-to-day basis. So while I was sitting on the phone, I was thinking, it seemed almost inappropriate that we would, even though we were just gathering information and data, and most likely from Andy, he's probably the most knowledgeable guy to be dealing with our communications. And I hate to pick on him as the example, but that's what brought it to my attention, was you actually might have a customer. That's what brought it to my attention, was that we're addressing a volunteer, and I just didn't think as a board we should directly address a volunteer. By all means, if that volunteer was a guest speaker of the chief or the chief's designee, I wouldn't have an issue, but to call a volunteer before the board, I didn't think was an appropriate action for the board.
Any other discussion? So noted.
Frank's thinking.
Next one.
Well, I guess I'm just thinking that if we have a question of any of the guests, public who are here, I don't see that there is necessarily a problem asking for their input or information on a topic that they may have particular knowledge of. Are you saying that his information should have come through the chief to us, or how?
No. If the chief asked him as a volunteer, would you speak to the board? And it came up that way. But for us to start questioning him as a member of the public, as a volunteer, as a member of the public, I thought was inappropriate. Because the volunteers have a very, and in the past have had a very hard time. You had to make a decision. You could elect to be a volunteer and serve the community. But if you did that, you gave up your right to speak as a member of the public to this board.
No, I don't think so.
I absolutely think so.
I don't. You're making him a second-class citizen if you say that. And I don't believe our volunteers are second-class citizens. I believe they have the right to respond to the board's questions. I think they have the right to speak to the board, just as any other citizen does.
Chuck, I didn't say they didn't have a right to speak to the board as a member of the public. I said in the past. So in the past, as a volunteer, if you chose to speak as a citizen of the district or as a landowner to this board, you were punished for your critique of the board's action while you volunteered. And the only people you had to protect you was the administration, was the day-to-day administration, to protect you from the board. And I'm an A1 class recipient of that. I got punished for speaking up. I got punished for speaking out on more than one occasion.
But
It cost me thousands of dollars. When I say thousands, in excess of $25,000, because I chose as a landowner to volunteer my time in this community, to the community, and I also chose as a landowner to speak out against the board. So I don't think that we should maintain that separation. I'm not saying as board members, we shouldn't talk to our neighbors, and our neighbors shouldn't talk to us. But I'm saying as a board, during these meetings, if it's not a public hearing, if they're not talking in the public comment section, we should not call a volunteer before us unless that volunteer is a guest of the chief, and it would come in the course of the chief's report. It obviously came at the volunteer's concurrence. Andy didn't have any, there was not an issue with it. It was just, we had a volunteer before us, and I thought we crossed the line. We skipped the recognition of authority from the chief, and we skipped their chain of command. And I didn't think it was appropriate. I just asked that we not do it in the future without the volunteer and the chief being present. And that back and forth not taking place outside of either the chief's report or a subject on which we ask the chief to talk.
Any other comments? Just so you weren't here, you weren't physically here, and it didn't transpire in the meeting. If I remember correctly, it had to do with the communications, the power or something. It wasn't like we were putting them on the spot. And the chief knew that I was involved with Andy because, in fact, I just gave you back the paperwork today. There was a bunch of paperwork that Andy had given to the chief that the chief gave to me. And that was the conversation. So he was aware of it. He wasn't here, no. But just so you know, he was aware of it.
So for me, being a member, not physically in attendance, just on the phone, and not knowing that had taken place, exactly what I just thought should occur, actually took place. But
It's probably my fault because I should have explained that Andy had given me paperwork, and that was part of the discussion we were having at the last meeting.
well, I apologize. I felt bad. I didn't think that we should call on any one of you and bypass your chain of command and bypass our authority to him. You give your service to us.
But we don't want to have this window between us, either a wall,
No.
that we can talk. But I'm agreeing with giving direction and that kind of thing. That's his bailiwick, not ours. Okay.
I consider Don Van Dyne a friend. And if he wants to talk to me about something,
Sure.
or if I want to talk to him about something, I'm gonna do it. Period.
And we were talking last night after the meeting.
My
I know what your
just
point is.
here as a board in a meeting, we should, Don, would you come and tell us about, and skip or leave out
Yeah.
that appearance?
I think we got that. Next one's nepotism.
We have the concern of hiring Cheryl Tuttle on a 6-month basis, trial basis. And so that motion passed at the last meeting. I voted yes. We are within the time frame of Robert's rules. Chuck, since it was your concern, have you had any in the past month since that motion passed and since Cheryl started her tentative, her temporary employment basis on this trial basis. Have you had any complaints from the members of the public regarding?
Are you asking me?
Yes, sir.
No?
Okay. There was a significant portion of there, I'm not sure if it was our telephone or what, where the microphone went dead, so I just had dead air. I should have interrupted. I had to say, hey, someone's talking. I think Frank might have been talking. But I did miss a significant portion, so I just wanted to revisit that. And I would also ask to put that on the agenda for old business for next month. To revisit every month, since it was a concern to track, is it a public's concern? Is it a problem? And how does it appear to the public? Not to put you front and center or create a hostile work environment.
Sharon has a comment.
I see.
When we were trained, we specifically asked, you know, like we had Art here and we hired Betty. And oh my gosh, all I can think of is Earl of Anger. Who trained us?
The grand
The
bidder.
Grand Bidder, yes, it is. We specifically asked him, and he said that there was no problem. That as long as Art did not give Betty any direction or did not, phrase that, as long as he did not,
Her boss.
her boss, as long as he did not do any evaluation with her, and we followed through and made sure that that did not happen, there were no problems. And he thoroughly said there was no problem with that. And I think we are totally safe now.
I think that my concern wasn't that we had done something wrong. My concern was to alleviate Chuck's fears. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but his fear was the appearance of nepotism, the appearance of wrongdoing. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct. There was never any question about Cheryl's abilities or qualifications, nor the legality of it. It was the appearance of it, and I think that as a board, we want to be above all appearances. And we want to go, if we err, to err on the positive side. And that any appearance we want to keep away from. And I, as I stated last time, didn't like the appearance of it.
When this rumor mill was going around, if we state that we specifically during our training asked for a grand bidder, you know, we can correct that.
I think we're getting to the point of beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
So let's move on from this topic. There isn't any complaints. Everything's fine. Carol's putting in about 95 hours a week or something. I don't know. She was here this morning at 4 o'clock. I think they slept her last night.
We've got to be careful of that because we can't allow her to work more than her 20 hours.
Right.
Because she cannot volunteer as being a paid employee of the district. She cannot also volunteer to the district.
Understood.
If she chooses, we've allowed, like Betty has helped us with pancake breakfast. We can't ask them to volunteer, but if they volunteer their time, they can help us.
Ed, do you remember the details on that? We ran into it before.
You mean the basic nepotism requirements? Or the, I'm looking at them right now.
Volunteer.
Volunteer.
Oh,
Employee, volunteer.
The discussion is, she's supposed to be working 20 hours a week. What if she stays at the station and volunteers for another 10?
Yeah, if you wouldn't want to do that if it's the same kind of duties, because that then looks like a subterfuge. If she's a volunteer firefighter, she goes out, you know, it's something different, she just happens to volunteer that way.
Okay.
You can't pretend to work, not work if you're paid employee.
We ran into that here a number of years ago, where we were billed for overtime pay for doing the same type thing that was paid, and I think specifically we found a policy or a law that says if they are a paid employee, they cannot volunteer their time, additional time for the same duties.
It comes from basic labor law because they don't want employers exploiting that
Yeah.
to meet minimum wage and other standards.
And the chairman just said she's spending 95 hours a week. Well, we can't allow her to work, or Betty,
Just-
anybody.
Just for the record, that was a joke. She wasn't here at 4 o'clock this morning. She's not working 95 hours a week.
We take you at your,
I was being facetious.
but we've got to watch that because as Ed said, that's one of the requirements.
I've had discussions with Ron DeGant about time for the part-time people as well as the chief. And it's taken care of. And Frank is involved in that as the clerk, because Frank does everything.
And
He does
Cheryl,
from 3 to 4 in the morning, that's a joke.
I'm not picking on you, Cheryl.
I know,
This is policy,
I understand.
not personal.
Okay, let's move on, we're beating that. Night Dropbox, Jake.
I'm not aware that there's a night Dropbox, but in the creation of the newsletter, I realized a lot of communications were actually come and gone in person to here, so we ended up coming up with an alternate plan. But it would probably be a good idea to have a night Dropbox and an after hours method of accepting correspondence here at the station.
You never know what you're gonna get.
Can we hold off on that and put it in with the camera thing? Is that still
Absolutely.
on the agenda, in the agenda? Okay, so let's hold off on that for a second. Next one is a UASD, Utah Association of Special Districts, long-term planning questions, and I have my name here, but it was actually Frank that sent me the email in the letter, so, and he's been quiet for a while, I know he's itching to talk. Oh, you're not?
No,
Okay.
no, you're right.
A letter came out from LeGrand Bidder at the Utah Association of Special Districts, and you have it in your binder in the miscellaneous. In fact, everybody got the email, it wasn't just sent to me. The committee was asking the association to address 2 questions, explain the existing long-term planning that is already being done among local and special service districts throughout Utah. The second question was to identify issues and challenges that the legislature needs to be aware of regarding long-term planning. And there's a form that's attached to the letter, you got the form in an email. After those 2 pages, those are my comments there. You're welcome to read them. If you want to add to it, you want to delete my comments, that's fine. We talked about the last couple of meetings that early stages of developing a long-term capital improvement plan. That was one of the things I addressed in one of the questions. That's it. Anybody have any comments?
Yes, one of the problems that I've seen over the years is that there's no provision in or I've never found one in the state law for a long-term equipment replacement fund where we build up that replacement fund while normally what we have to do is buy a piece of equipment, bond for it or borrow for it. And we're throwing quite a load on the taxpayers during that length of time that those are being paid off. And then we go maybe 7 to 10 years with no additional capital cost on that piece of equipment, where we should be accruing a set amount a year, 20,000 a year or something for that equipment replacement. So at the end of 10 years, we've got the money there so that we don't have to bond for it in the future. And I haven't seen any provision for this type of a specific fund, like an equipment replacement fund in state law. I'd like to see.
As I mentioned last night, if you go to Title 17B1 in that 605 to 623 area, there is verbiage in there that talks about if you have a capital improvement fund and you have a large amount of money, you're supposed to have a capital improvement plan that targets where this money is going to, vehicles, equipment, and that's what I'm starting to work on, because you just got the list 2 days ago, yesterday, whatever it was. But in that capital improvement plan, we've got to start talking about the town site after this land we may or may not acquire, vehicles, other things. But it's in that, I don't remember which section, but it's in one of those sections that talks about that. 605? Thank you. You were nodding, so you go to where
Yes.
it's at, to the capital improvement plan.
Capital projects, actually. So it's
Capital
not-
projects.
It's not, I think that's intentionally not limited just to land acquisition and building
Right.
full house.
In fact, these other reserve funds that we were talking about last night,
Yes.
those are supposed to be included in the plan too, what we're supposed to be doing with that money. The only time, from my understanding and talking with the state auditor, is if we have enterprise funds.
Right.
You can keep an unlimited amount of money in an enterprise fund and not target it for anything. But because we're in the, what'd you call it, the general fund, we have to target that money, because we're using general, category general fund. So, edit on that one?
Let's get to work on the long-range plan.
You're welcome, it's on that website. Long range plan or capital improvement plan?
But, well, that should be part of the K long-range.
They're two different things. One's a long range plan for the district as far as training and equipment and what we're targeting. The other has to do with money that we have in these funds that we have to assign targets for the money, such as checks. It's different things.
Okay, but they should be compatible.
Yes. Okay, the next thing is, do you volunteer to do that, by the way?
I can.
You want this?
Will you let me?
I have a spreadsheet. Well, you want to be picking on you now for ICS, whatever, because I'll start doing that every month. You want that?
Okay.
You want me to send you the spreadsheet for the long-range plan?
Okay.
Or you
I
work, I'll tell you what, you work on the long-range plan, because it needs updating. And you can find it right on our homepage. And I'll work on the capital improvement plan. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, the next thing is an emergency plan. And everybody knows in the last 4 years, we've had 3 incidents, 2 in the county, the snowstorm and the fire, and the slide that actually happened in Iron County, but it affected the businesses up here big time. And in all those instances, we don't really have any kind of a plan in place on who's supposed to do what and when. For example, during the snowstorm, Sharon, who was on the board back then, was stuck in her house for 3 weeks. Brian Romney was on the board. He was busy digging out pine woods. Jeff Hoyt and Jerry Treebolt. Hoyt was dealing with water issues, so he was out and about, and Jerry was with him. And that left myself and Butch and Hernan was on the board at the time. Hernan was down in Canal, wasn't even up here. And my feeling is that the district needs some kind of an emergency plan that delineates duties for our board officers. We are elected officials, and we are responsible for the health and safety of the people in this district. With that in mind, I started working on this plan, and the reason why the board didn't get it ahead of time is that if you look at any county, state, or local government, you will not find their emergency plans anywhere on the website, any website, because they're all controlled documents, which this is going to be. So we're probably going to need to do this in a work meeting, and we can all look at the overhead to work on it, because I'm not the know-it-all that knows everything, everybody has input to this. But this is what I have so far. You've got a purpose and a scope here. Can you see that back there, David? I'm not gonna go, this is like 30-something pages long, so I'm not gonna go through all this. But there's a purpose and a scope here. There's a publication statement that says that this is gonna be our operations plan. The chain of command is right here, which is the chairman, the vice chair, the clerk, the treasurer, and then board members. And there's a signature page for everybody, including the chief, by the way. I'll sign off on this. There's a page here for changes, records of changes, as we made to the plan. Oh, there's one for distribution too. But I think, and this is something we need to talk with as a board, the plan should probably be located here. There's no reason for every board member to have a copy of the plan. So you have a master copy in the office and maybe one in the chief's office. And then gets into the basic plan. There's a lot of stuff about the location of CMFP, the geographic boundaries, which I got right out of the charter, the demographics, the amount of people that we have here as tourists that visit, both in the district and around the area. There's a hazard profile in here, talks about different hazards. And right now, oops, get out of here. I've identified avalanches, earthquakes, severe thunderstorms, severe winter weather, fires including urban, grass, and forest fires, epidemics, high winds. That was about it. I couldn't think of anything else. These are all things that could affect us here. A vulnerability study, which is an attachment 1, which you won't see in this plan because that's kept separately from the plan. That has to do with how vulnerable we are as a community. Some planning assumptions. We have Everbridge. I added that in here. That's the word that's misspelled. But it doesn't recognize it. Spell check. Concept of operations. This would be our main EOC. Station 2 would be our alternate EOC. We'd be working with the county emergency manager down in Kane County. I believe back in 2011, there was a change in the legislature. Prior to that, for the snowstorm, for example, because that was in 2010, only the county could declare a state of emergency, and that's important because until a state of emergency is declared, you don't get county support or federal support. Well, I think that's changed now, especially service districts have the right to declare states of emergency, which starts a whole process going on support that you may or may not need. This is hazard control and assessment right in here. Public warning, short-term needs, long-term needs. That came up during the snowstorm, and I wasn't here for the fire, but I'm sure the same issues arose then.
On the fire, I could not find one person, one board member. I was the only, we were coming up just as it was starting, so I came over here. And we need to realize as elected officials, this is our responsibility. You may be search and rescue, but everybody needs to come here, check in. This is your responsibility because we are elected officials. And so I had wonderful volunteers that came in and we provided food and it was greatly appreciated. But that was really an eye-opener to me. That everybody was gone, water, search and rescue, whatever.
Anyway, here's your organization here, and you'll see under number 5, we even got Ed in here as the lawyer for legal. You didn't know you volunteered for this, right? Then there's some responsibilities, the chief elected official's responsibilities. The fire department. That doesn't mean you gotta be here, but emergency medical service agencies, so forth, public works, which our public works is really our snow removal, they're not public works. But during the snow, the public works folks from Canal came up here with some equipment to help in the snow removal operation. Support facilities, I'm trying to get to the important part here. And you see this goes on and on and on.
Wow, this seems like a bomb carriage.
It talks about planned maintenance in here. There's some references in there. Keeps going on and on and on. And there's the vulnerability assessment. I just put it's kept at fire station #1. And there is one, I just don't have it here today. The communications plan, that's why I needed Andy's information last meeting. And the chief, that's also at station 1. Will be kept here. And we've got support agencies, probably, I was toying with the idea of whether we should have this in the plan, or just have that under separate cover here also. And what I could think of was Garcade, and there's a couple of addresses for them. AmeriGas, because we're using AmeriGas here. South Central Communications. And I got some nonprofits in here. I mean, all I could think of offhand was the Red Cross. I got the Alton Ward here, but I don't know if they'd be considered a support function. They probably would be.
Oh, yeah, they'll help put out food, anything that's needed.
Then when you get to the implementing procedure, it actually outlines the duties. So this is the chair, vice chair, because we're the two, these positions are the two highest in the district. It tells you things that is expected of the chairman, vice chair, when they're on duty here in the EOC, like reporting, maintaining the law, Everbridge notification, and so on and so forth. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. Protective actions if any are needed, interacting with Kane County. It goes on for a while. There's a lot of bullets there. And this position is typically filled by either the chair or the vice chair. Then we've got finance and administration, so we got the treasurer here, and the clerk. And there's duties for that person, maintaining a log. A lot of the stuff is the same stuff. And then we have board members, that they'll have duties here. And theirs is a little shorter. And of course, our fire chief has duties too. I took some of the stuff out of the job description too, so it may have changed. Well, actually it didn't. And that's where I'm at. It's 32 pages. So we need to get together probably as a board and go through this more in chief, more in depth. And maybe add some more stuff to this. Maybe somebody can think of duties that I didn't think of. But as Sharon said, we will become more organized as a district. And we'll have a center of operations, which we were using the station for the snowstorm. I don't know if it was the ideal place to be at the time, because it was hard for people to get up here.
And no phone.
And we had no, well, there was no phone anywhere for a few days. The phone lines were just down.
Didn't you have it at Elbridge?
Elbridge was working.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're not familiar with Everbridge, this came up at one of those ward meetings. Everbridge is an internet-based system, but up here we use it through our phone line. Because unless you have that huge satellite thing. When the phone line goes down, you don't have Everbridge alerts either. It goes away. So just so you know. Anyway, that's where I'm at with that. So we need to get together and maybe do a couple of work sessions to do this, to move along further.
Can we schedule them so we can work around them?
Can I suggest that we get together and do a work meeting on the 14th? We have a board meeting here, and we have the Father's Day potluck.
14th of what?
June.
That's a Saturday. We got the board meeting already that day.
And we have the potluck, so we'll be fed.
Pardon?
I said, and we have the potluck afterwards, the Father's Day potluck will be here, so we'll be fed. And then
Potluck on the 14th?
Father's Day potluck?
Father's Day? The get to know the chief, you know?
I don't know anything about Father's Day potluck. Is it in the,
It's in the calendar.
is
And
it here?
I didn't bring the calendar with me, but I was under the impression it was here.
The reason I'm asking is if you're having a potluck here, it's gonna be hard to do a work meeting because people are here doing a
I'm
potluck.
saying after the potluck.
Oh, after the
You know,
potluck.
we participate and then afterwards,
Well, remember, there's EMR training here
on that same day.
every Friday, Saturday in June.
Okay.
So this is gonna be a busy place if we have a potluck here too.
The EMR training in June, the weekend of the regular meeting is gonna be at Station 2. We already talked with the chief about that, so he's gonna have to be over there for the EMR. Well, he's probably gonna have to be too, right? You're signed up.
Yeah.
And Donna, amongst others. Maybe a light meeting. They keep the agenda like that meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at recess 5 minutes later. Yeah, that would be tough on a Saturday because of that.
Another day?
You have another day that's open? You got your calendar, do you have another day that's open?
I've got a lot of them open, but I'm tied up every Thursday.
Well, Thursday's not a good day either because that's when they do training here, right? Thursday nights? That's not a good day either. I'll tell you what, why doesn't everybody go home, look at their calendar, send some dates in to Cmfpd admin, and then we'll come up with some dates. How about that?
In June, first half of June, or last half of May, or
Just send some dates in. Send a couple of dates when you're available. Okay? Sound good? Sounds good.
The last week in May has, this will be occupied with chainsaw training. Forest Service is doing chainsaw training all day.
last week in May.
Yeah, 27 through 30. I don't know what time they'll be stopping, 5 o'clock or so. I mean, we might be able to go at 6 or something like that.
Yeah, they usually get through about 4, except for the last day, about 3.
Of course, they may end up leaving stuff in here also.
You may have to end up doing it during the week. And we're always looking at weekdays, but that may be when you have to do these meetings. So we'll do that. Get a couple of dates, send them in to the admin, and we'll come up with some days. Is that okay? Okay. Next thing up there is a security camera, and this will be in conjunction with the night Dropbox deal. The reason why this topic came up is over the past couple of months, there have been items at the station that have grown legs and moved, and then they reappear. And we as a board, as elected officials, are responsible for the building and all of the equipment in the building. As well as the chief is responsible for it. And we all know that after hours up here, it gets dark, you don't know what goes on up here. It's a building that's in the woods and there's nobody around. And the thought at one time was that we purchase security cameras and put them in various locations around the building and in the office. And Chuck had brought up a point in emails with me. He was asking if the recording, if the video would be recorded, or it's just something where you log in and, you know, you look at your computer screen and you see what's at the building. And I didn't go that far in doing the research for the equipment that I found. Costco has, or had, 8 cameras on sale for like $500. But I believe those cameras are connected to a computer. So you log into your phone, smartphone, where you log in, and you can see what's going on at the station. And that's where that ended, and that's why it hasn't been talked about since. But there are times when equipment seems to grow legs here, and moves around, or paperwork.
Paperwork, yes.
It's just, it's
Reappears.
mysterious. They seem to go away and then reappear.
Some of it doesn't always reappear.
And some of it doesn't always reappear. That was the idea of the security camera from that. It's not pointing fingers at anybody, because we don't know what's going on. I mean, a lot of us are
Like a
little,
ghost.
some of us are long in the tooth, maybe we forget where we put it, and realize where we put it. I don't know. But,
The cameras alone don't really do the whole thing. I think you gotta record it, or else have somebody sitting there watching the monitors like they do in casinos, full time. Because your chances of being logged in and viewing the specific camera at 2:30 in the morning are pretty nil. Without the recorder, I'm not sure that it's that much advantage to us, except the camera being up there makes people think that maybe that is. But I think that what we should look at is the cost of the recording equipment, and so that we know what the total cost of the system would be. Then if something happens, we can identify a time frame and go look at the digital recordings of that time frame. Otherwise, I'm not sure that it's what I'd like to see is a complete system.
need to bring the Dropbox into it, that's why I was asking to hold off, because if we have a Dropbox here and stuff's disappearing, we can just bring it in the Dropbox and take it, it's just weird. How this happens.
Also, I wouldn't like to see a 7-Eleven type of recording system, but really a good one where you can identify the person. Of course, most of the new ones are much better. Those that most of the 7-Elevens are probably 10 to 15 years old already.
And not disagreeing with what you're saying, there is some value in the deterrent aspect.
Of just the cameras, yeah.
Yeah, because people don't know, if there is somebody doing this, they don't know when people are watching and when they're not. So there is something to be said for that, but the value isn't in recording, except that somebody's got to sit there and watch the whole recording, which is not bad. I mean, when you're reading it. Because aren't those recordings, don't they, like you get it for 24 hours, and then it just records over itself?
Well, there's different lengths of time. Some of them will go 30 days. There's a variety, but I think, a good point's made here
Yes.
that we need it to be recorded, and I think the cost difference is nominal.
The new ones they got now is on a motion detector. They might be off all night long. As soon as that motion detector turns it on, and it records it. And records the date too, the time. This way you won't have a big stack of tapes.
Yeah, you've got to then develop how long you're gonna keep those tapes, maybe 30-day maximum. Some of the places only keep them a 7-day maximum. We've used one in our business and it was very helpful, but we only kept them 24 hours. We ran them just 16 hours overnight.
Now they got the little cards. I have a bunch around the mountain right now. It only records when something goes in front of it. As the date, the time, I can pull those cards and put it on my viewer and look at it.
Where are they?
Like animals.
I'll go by and you can get a picture of me.
Well, but you can get one that, you rate your cameras, mine are individual ones, but you don't have to have a bunch of tapes, you can get them on the cards now, and then cards, I don't know how much I put on those cards.
So am I hearing that the board has some interest in doing this? I mean, rather than just somebody going out and spinning their wheels and, we have other parts of the topic that come up.
I would look at the ones that somebody comes by.
Does anybody want to volunteer to look into this?
Frank.
Jay, you make the most about it.
Mine are all animal ones, deer.
Slide right.
I'll volunteer.
Well, you got enough to do. I'll tell you what, you and I will tag team and do it.
Okay.
How's that? You got enough going on, you
Tag.
newsletter, you know. Okay, we'll look into it, we'll report back next meeting, how's that? The last one is the governing board officers, Jay.
In looking at the state code, the state code provides for the board positions of president, treasurer, and clerk. And it also provides for the allotment of any other positions which we deem necessary or appropriate. So I say president, I'm going to say chairman. So for right now, the only in excess of the minimum state allotment is the vice chair position. And I had, in reading these things, I had the thought, why do we have this extra position? What service does it fulfill? And I was hoping that maybe a past board member could fill me in.
What's the position?
Vice chair, your position.
What about it?
So it's in excess of the minimum state required. So why do we have a position that's in excess of the minimum state required? What was the purpose?
Unavailability of the chair.
That was the entire purpose? Okay. Man, the state has allowed for the unavailability of the chair for the clerk to run the meeting. So why do we designate,
Didn't do it that way. That's why.
we just didn't do it
Just didn't do it that way. Clerk's hands were full, and so.
I would move that I would make a motion that we absolve the vice chair position as we have a clerk, we have a chair, we have a treasurer, and that meets the requirement of the state. I don't see the need for a vice chair position.
That requires a charter amendment,
Yes, well.
and then that can't be done by motion, it will need to be done in whatever the terms of the charter are for changing the charter. That's a little bit different. There's stuff that you can't just do by motion. And you can do it by motion, but you have to do it as a charter amendment.
Doesn't the charter provide for the vice chair?
Yes, it
It
does.
does.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely, that's why it has to be a.
It would have to be in context of the
Why
charter.
would we even mess with getting rid of it? It's nothing.
If we were going to mess with it, I would think, because we have a vice chair in place, that we would talk about it at the end of the year when it comes time to renominate and elect officers, if we were gonna do that. Because you do have to change the charter. And I don't know why we're doing, I don't see the point of doing it now, because we've elected 4 officers. We have 4 officers, so.
Okay.
um,
We have to change the charter anyways. Is the charter presently?
Two-thirds vote, two-thirds vote of all members of the governing board. It can't happen at a regular meeting. But it has to be noticed as a charter amendment.
I withdraw the motion, as we revisit it at the end of the year, when we elect new officers. but we do need to amend the charter. There are several things within the charter that are not current. Dates, places, names. So the charter at the very least still needs to be amended.
So we know
So we can put that on for the next meeting, charter amendment, and I'll email everybody what I've discovered so far in the charter that needs to be amended.
Is that it? Any other discussion? Comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Got two. May I obtain a copy of the snow removal contract and a copy of the bids? I have a few questions about home that I can't
I
figure out.
understand. I don't see a problem with the contract itself. I'm not sure about the bids. I guess it's public record, I guess.
Yeah, they're public.
Yeah, it probably is,
Just the winning bid, right? Or all of the bids?
Oh, winning bids is fine, yeah.
Yeah, the winning bid on each contract.
I don't see why not. It's public record, right? Sure.
Thank you.
After the meeting, in fact, I have copies of all three because I made copies of them after last night's discussion. I wanted to go read them.
One more.
Yes, sir.
In my opinion, Chuck, you're micromanaging the chief, and I think that's a big mistake.
Okay?
Let the man do his job and do it well. He's modern day firefighter. He knows things like that. If you support him, I believe he's gonna make you all look good. But if you micromanage him, it's like hiring an electrician to wire your house. And you tell him how to wire it. First time when he's done, you flip the switch, you're gonna burn, you're gonna bust breaker. Let him do his job.
But I'm gonna tell that electrician how many circuits I want, where I want my outlets, where I
That's
want
my
my...
case.
But I'm not gonna tell him how to run the wire. He's gotta do that himself.
I rest my case.
Anybody else? Betty?
This gentleman has just said that Chuck is micromanaging the fire chief. I'd like him to explain what Chuck did that he's talking about.
It was explained earlier in what you're trying to do to the chief. You're micromanaging, you're telling him what to do, let him do his job. You're micromanaging.
When did I tell him what to do, Mike,
This
or
morning,
Wallen? What,
earlier in the.
what did I tell him? I was talking about...
Over the minutes, I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, you have to be at every meeting. You have to.
Yes, that's our policy. That's what the policy said. And that's what we're doing is setting
You were
policy.
chairman, how many meetings did Kenny Johnson?
Calm down. We can talk like adults.
Okay.
Calm down.
When you were chairman, how many meetings did Kenny Johnson miss?
Very few when I was chairman.
A whole bunch of them.
No.
Mike, Wally, you're wrong. And that's why that policy was adopted, was so that he wouldn't.
Chuck, just let the man do his job, and he'll do you a good job.
He isn't telling him how to do his job.
Yes, baby.
Okay, the point was made. If you want to continue the discussion, you can do it offline, because we don't need heated discussions here. Let's leave it at that. Don?
This, I don't know how relevant this would be now, but when the shingle fire was going on, wasn't there in place a insurance pool with all the counties? Did we or did we not get out of that? Are we still out of it? Is that something that we consider be pertinent to our operation to get back into that in the event we got such a dry summer and all?
We've had these discussions not as a group, but individually amongst ourselves. And there's mixed opinions of whether we should or shouldn't. And you heard last night about I'm assuming that's where this is coming from, if the fire starts
Right, yeah.
on
I
somebody and
understand that.
spreads to federal, we're responsible for it. And right now,
I'm
we
sure
have no
there's a
insurance.
substantial cost involved
Yeah.
in it too.
And we've had discussions about it, we can put it on the agenda and talk about it as a board, in front of the public. We haven't really talked about it as a board. We did that night in the training,
Yeah.
and that's because the commissioner brought it up with the two ladies that were up here. But it is something we need to discuss down the road.
They're paying it, aren't they?
I thought he said that they are not paid.
The thing about it, we're too late, I think, for this year. We're not too late to talk about it and get on it.
No, I was just curious.
The thought process, we have paid it up to, Chuck will have to correct me if I'm wrong, I would say the 2008, 2009 timeframe. Is that the correct timeframe? That we had paid that?
Yes,
was paid
somewhere around there.
About,
And at that time, the board realized that the participation in that fund is required by the state of the counties, not by municipalities, not by special service districts. The feeling was the majority of the taxpayers within the district paying $1.50 or $2 per share, double the amount of your taxes if you're a non-resident versus the resident share, that enough money was going out of the district to the county to fund that. The county's mentality was, when we got rid of it, is they were still required to pay into it, and they're still paying into it. They never stopped paying into it. It's kind of a domino effect. If we have a fire here that originates here within the district, that's catastrophic, and now we become liable for that catastrophic fire, the county, please correct me if I'm wrong, the county is paid into this fund, we're within the county. But the fire started here. So the trickle-down effect of who's responsible is we would become responsible to the county for their loss, even though they paid into the fund. Well, if we had a catastrophic fire, we wouldn't be in existence. The revenue wouldn't be being generated. We'd probably be over bankrupt. And there's nobody on the hook for it. So the feeling was, hey, the county wants us to pay this premium. We have this fire, or this catastrophic event we pay this premium for, but in the end, we wouldn't be here anyways. So who's really on the hook? So should we ask the taxpayer to pay another $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 premium towards that fund that the state as far as the county paid for the district? So there's kind of that balance there when you do that.
Okay.
Well, had the Schumel fire started on private property in our district, we'd been on the for it anyway.
We must be here
So
right now.
it doesn't really apply. We're not under that county umbrella. Right?
That policy would have covered us. Had we paid into,
Right, it would.
we would have been protected had it started on private property, absolutely. So that's the,
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
One more thing, along your line. Years ago, at the entrance of each and every subdivision was a big sign that gave the fire danger. Now, there are a lot of flatlanders that come up here and all they want to do is park. And they build big fire, bonfires and all that sort of stuff. And if you had those old signs out there, I don't know, on some of these boards that you're talking about, they just drive by, they don't see it. But those old signs were out there where everybody could see along the road when they first entered the subdivision. And it gave an up-to-date, whether it was extreme or high or low or whatever. But it gave them the sensible person that comes up an idea of what the fire danger was. And with maybe the drought conditions that we might have, it'll go back to the old restrictions, fire restrictions.
we have a bunch of those yellow signs, Wally, that we've been putting up. No charcoal barbecue.
Oh, yeah,
No, there's no campfires.
Right.
Those will go back up when restriction is. I know what sign you're talking about the white sign.
Yeah,
They just all disappeared.
The sign,
I know,
like the Smokey the Bear sign when you're coming into the
Yes,
village,
exactly.
that's the kind of thing,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
We could talk with the Forest Service, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe get some and put them up at the subdivision entrances.
They might.
I don't know if we can do that because.
Last year, I talked to somebody about that, and they said they've got the signs on either end of 14. And
Right.
so they think that's
That's enough.
enough.
So
And
they
it
figured,
gets people when they first come in, but, you know, it's a good reminder. Wally makes a good point, I think.
those orange signs with all the different things on there would get their attention even better than the old signs we used to have.
I think there are only two of the old signs still in existence.
Yeah, they're covered up.
One on,
Color Country.
two on X, one down on Pioneer Mountain Road.
Well, I think that's gone now.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
We'll talk with the chief offline, maybe we can look into that with, getting, I don't know where else you get them from, Forestry Service.
Well, you can do, that's a good point.
The Smokey the Bear thing,
Mhm.
not necessarily we have to have Smokey the Bear.
Right.
Yeah,
but
but
see, that
is an attention getter, Smokey's Bear is an attention.
It is, but I'm wondering if they've got some kind of a rule because they're a federal, you know, that's,
Forestry Service.
and this is Cmfpd, which is, I don't know, we'd have to find
The
out.
Smoky, the bear sign only says high, low, this and that. The orange sign says what they can do and what they can't do. Sometimes it'll just be campfire.
Understood.
Sometimes it'll be everything, barbecues, fireworks is on there.
I like
You got a
those.
bunch of them here somewhere.
I like
Downstation
Ryan
too, we
has-
have a lot of them.
We'll check there.
Right?
We'll look into it.
Ryan has good signs and they just put black tape.
Yep,
Any
It's
other,
very good.
they paid for those.
I think I need a motion for pending litigation to go into closed session to talk about what I showed you earlier, just to bring everybody up to date on what's going on. It won't take that long. So could I have a motion to go into closed session?
I'll move, we go into closed session to consider pending legislation,
Pending litigation.
litigation.
Is there a second?
Second the motion?
Poll the board?
Aye.
You have to poll the board.
Jim,
Yeah.
Jay,
Okay.
Aye, Sharon, Mike,
Aye.
Chuck,
Yes.
Frank.
Hi.
Okay, at this time, it's 12:57. Cedar Mountain Fire Protection District is going into recess, we're in closed session.